Hereby call this GP&A committee meeting to order, held on Monday, May 8th, 2017. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise for a moment of silence. Please be seated. So I just wanted to start by apologizing to everyone for the delayed start in the open portion. Our closed session was carried on past the anticipated time, but we're dealing with important matters that we had to deal with until completion. So on that note, I just wanted to announce that matters from the closed session that Council has approved staff recommendation with direction to carry out some additional discussions with the developer and report back to the May 29th Council meeting. So for those of you who are here from Canterbury Common, trying to get a sense, that's all we can say is that at this point. So I'd like to thank all the Canterbury Common residents for their patience and their effort in the matters going forward, and we hope to be able to offer information to the public once we can at the earliest opportunity, and to the media, but I will look to staff and legal and our communications manager for times and at what information at what point can be delivered. So next item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and nature thereof. Councillor Back.
Thank you through the mayor. Pecuniary on deputation 9.3.
And the nature of that?
It concerns me.
Okay. Okay. Party minute. Councillor Kett.
Thank you, Mayor. It will concern me as well, but I'm having problems with my agenda coming up.
Is it item 9.3 the same one that Councillor? Sure. Okay. So at that time, we'll just at that delegation, we'll pause for a moment. Any other pecuniary interest? Okay. Well, if anything arises during the meeting or et cetera, just declare and. Councillor Back?
I believe there's a correspondence as well.
Okay, that's
related to the delegation.
All right, correspondence relating to the delegation, which is item, I think it's near the end, 10.4.6, as well as dealing with the matter 11. You're wanting all issues dealing with that 11.4. Is that the same for you, Councillor Kett? Okay, so those have been duly noted. One item is extracted from the consent agenda for that reason, so we will deal with them at that time and extract them. So, next, any other pecuniary interest? See none, we'll move on to announcements from Council. Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've again been asked by Community Care Durham to announce the Walk for Mental Health Awareness Challenge. It's a 1-5 kilometer walk starting at Palmer Park on June 10th at 9 a.m. and it continues along the boardwalk and around the waterfront trail by Canterbury Common to Simcoe Street. After the walk, participants can return to Palmer Park for a free barbecue operated by the Rotary Club with food donated by Harrington's and the Trading Post. And the Master of Ceremonies is Jim McKinney, retired NHL player and City TV sportscaster. Jim suffered from mental health issues over the years and has offered his time to support the walk. The person who collects the highest pledges will win a night for two at the Nestleton Waters Inn with a gourmet breakfast. I do have the pledge forms here for anyone interested. Jillian Housen, who is the program assistant, goes on to further say, come out and support your community. the walk-in would be the mayor and many of their councilors come and support it. And we are challenging the Township of Scugog to come and walk in the Port Perry walk to support mental health. So please let me know if you would like to be a part of it or would like a pledge sheet. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to congratulate Community Care on their 40th anniversary. I had the pleasure of attending their 40th anniversary celebration last Wednesday. They do so much for our community, and they took that opportunity to celebrate with their volunteers and provide them with a lunch. And on that day as well was our McHappy Day, which any of you that know me is my favorite day of the year. I saw most of council, I'm sure all of council was there at some point or another, working the drive-through or working in the store, but they raised a little over $19,000 for Big Brothers Big Sisters North Durham, so we're so fortunate to have a community that comes out and supports McHappy Day, and so it was a great day. And I would also like to congratulate the BIA on a very successful Diva Night, as well as our Rotarians who came out and helped that evening. They were selling raffle tickets to support the hospice, and I'm pleased to announce that they raised over, I think it was over $1,300 in their one night of raffle sales. The attendance was great, the weather was on our side. We had some karaoke that night and some limo rides, so it was a great night by all, and the most important thing is that we came out to support our local businesses, and both retail and restaurants definitely were packed and busy that night, so it was a great event.
Other announcements from Councillor Drew?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to congratulate the studio tour that was on the weekend. It was a lot of fun. I managed to dodge all of the rain showers in and out of the different venues, so I think it was a very successful weekend for them, even though it was raining all weekend. And McDonald's McHappy Day, yeah, I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I greeted all the early risers, so that was a lot of fun at the takeout window.
Any other announcements from council? Councillor Kett?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say we had a great Tri-EDAC meeting a couple of weeks ago. There was a lot of great ideas brought out, and one of the big ideas is the other two municipalities had very good, successful, and good luck with bringing the mayor and the ward councillors out to all new venues, and so it was a good meeting.
Councillor Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. April the 30th was the Rotary Gala, and I don't think that has been announced. And that was a week ago, Saturday evening. Well attended. I think there was well over 200. And that night is when we made the announcement that the township has purchased the Immaculate Conception School for the hospice, and this will be our new home for our hospice in North Durham. And Port Perry can be very proud that we have chosen, or that the hospice has chosen, that North Durham will be in the little town of Port Perry, and we will take all of Durham as well as outside the area into our hospice when we get it up and running. It's a real proud moment, and the Rotary money that evening went to the Rotary, and they are anticipating a lot more events to come that will be supportive in their endeavor.
Any other announcements from council? Councillor Kett?
Second time, I just wanted to thank Betty for representing council during that, and job well done.
Any final announcements? I just wanted to, there was a flag raising for Community Living Durham North that was held at the beginning of the month, and tonight, actually, May 8th, around Toronto and other municipalities are putting up green and blue in the windows, so to represent inclusive living for community living, and I have brought with me, if I get the time to, after council, to put up blue and green lights in our windows tonight, so hopefully that'll be there in support of inclusive living. And I'd like to thank council for attending the flag raising, recognizing that important work that Community Living Durham North contributes to our community. The other item I received correspondence is new animal shelter for Uxbridge Scugog in the Rough Tournament. 5th annual fundraising tournament is Thursday, June 22nd. I received an email, a challenge that Uxbridge is sponsoring a hole as well as they are putting in a team. So they've challenged us to do the same. So I just wanted to bring that up, that it is Thursday, June 22nd. I believe Roger Anderson is set up for Chamber of Commerce meeting. It seems to fall the same day, and then it's a departure after the Roger Anderson's Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and then in the Rough. So any members of staff or council that would like to partake in a team or more than one team on the day, they'd be interested in gathering up so that we can show our support for fundraising for the Uxbridge Scugog North Animal Shelter for Uxbridge Scugog. Any other final announcements before we move on? Okay, thanks. We'll now move on to presentations, core services and efficiency review. Mrs. Carol Coleman, Director of Community Services. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor Rowe, members of council. So I'm here today as a follow-up to my last presentation on the waste management at municipal buildings. As you know, we're doing a core services and efficiency review for many items within the township, and this one is regarding a contract award related to waste management. So on March 20th, 2017, I came to the presentation basically on what are we doing now in terms of waste management. As a really quick summary, we have contracted services with waste bins at 5 different facilities in the township right now, and there are 3 different contractors in place removing these bins. And the estimated annual cost for this is about $55,000 a year. Now this isn't all cost to the contractors. There is some staff time costs in there too of about $5,700. So what we did, we looked at a new contract, and before we did that, we reviewed the size of the bins and the frequency of pickup and made some adjustments. So bins at the Scugog Community Recreation Center, we put in slightly larger bins, and same with that Blackstock, we went to slightly larger bins, because you mostly pay for how many times they come and empty it, not as much on the size of the bin. And at Blackstock Depot, there were 2 smaller bins, and we put in 1 larger bin instead. Parks Depot, there were 4 totes for recyclable materials, and we put in 1 larger recycle bin instead. We also added a new bin at the Port Perry Works Depot, so staff didn't need to take the time to collect the garbage, take it to the landfill, and dispose of it, so there was cost savings there. We reduced the frequency at the Blackstock Recreation Complex from weekly to bi-weekly, but we do have a clause in the contract that if we need to do it more often we can, or if there's odor issues, we can, in the summer we can do it more often. And we reduced the frequency at Scugog Community Recreation Center in the summer because there's less usage in the summer, but again, the contract allows us to do it more frequently if there is a need for that. And we also included locks for all the bins. Now, I was hoping that there would be savings with this, but I wasn't expecting this much savings. So for a 2-year contract, it's approximately $30,000 for the 2 years, or $15,000 a year, which is about a $40,000 a year savings. So this has been a very successful endeavor, and we're now looking at other things that we can group together and look for other savings. It's not full $40,000 in dollars only. As I said, some of that is staff time, but it does free up staff time to do other things. And there is about $35,000 extra that we will be able to use in other much-needed areas in the township budget. Just to follow up on for the waste management portion, we're going to continue looking at ways to improve recycling at all township facilities, the depots, the township office, and also in public facilities, the parks, the recreation centers, and downtown areas. But essentially, this is the largest part of the waste management review, and this is findings. if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Councillor Kett? Thank you for the report, by the way, and keep up the finding savings. We'll always receive that information. Councillor Kett?
Thank you, Mayor, and that's what I'd like to reflect as well. Those kind of savings in no time will be almost up to one house's taxes, aren't we?
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Councillor Kett and Mayor Rowett's comments about well done and great savings. Do you believe that one of the reasons is through this report, we've now gone to one contractor, is that correct?
That's correct.
So that would have impacted it hugely as well?
It's one contractor, and it was also done through a competitive bid process, where I believe the other ones, we needed a bin, so we called up a contractor and just placed a bin without a competitive bid.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Councillor Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. It might sound pretty silly, but are they constantly locked, the bins? And do you have people that go by and throw their household garbage in?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I don't know if they're constantly locked now. I have asked for keys or locks for all the facilities so that we can lock them. People will dump beside them. We can have cameras in place to try to monitor it, but dumping does happen. It's hard to prevent.
Is there a lot that you know of? A lot of household garbage that is
I
dumped?
haven't heard about a lot of dumping, no.
Okay. Yeah, I just wondered how much that is costing us for household garbage.
Yeah, I don't have a figure for that.
Yeah,
sir.
thank you. Nice report, by the way.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none? Thank you very much, Ms. Coleman. So a motion to move by Councillor Watton to presentation be received. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item up is we're on delegations. So the first one is 9.1, Janice Hamilton Dicker and Dan Dunn, representing Castle Harbour and surrounding streets. There is a presentation I see coming up here, so once it is finalized, whoever's doing the presentation can come forward to the couple seats that are here. If there's more than two, then you can just pull a chair around. Welcome.
Thank you.
And just as you sit down, there'll be a button on the base of the microphones, and these microphones are gooseneck, so you can pull them. They don't have to be right under your mouth, but just in the direction towards your mouth, and then you can make sure.
I don't have much of a problem projecting.
But the button, the reason why we need it is because it's recorded. If you don't have it going through, then it doesn't pick it up. So just make sure the button's flush, and then if they're both on, or if there's too many on, it might cause a problem. But I'll turn mine off now.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor Rowett and Council. My name is Janice Hamilton Dicker. I live at 17 Castle Harbour Drive in Port Perry. I represent residents from Castle Harbour Drive, Conkers Cove Road, Stone Sound, Island View Court, Simcoe Street, and Old Simcoe Road. Already submitted was a petition with 60 names requesting that the Mayor and Council support our request to have the speed limit on Simcoe Street reduced to 60 kilometers an hour from north of Riverview Drive to north of Whitfield Road. Originally, the request was for the speed to be reduced to north of Stone Sound, but we found that many people requested that the reduction in speed be carried north of the trading post. What started this request was back in February 17, 2016. One of the residents that live on Castle Harbour was involved in an accident at the intersection of Castle Harbour and Simcoe Street. The person was hospitalized due to the injuries. Myself and others from our subdivision wrote to the Mayor and Council and the Durham region requesting that streetlights be installed at this location. Jeff Pammett, Traffic Engineering Supervision with the Durham region, responded by letter on April 7, 2016, advising that a safety investigation and intersection collision analysis was conducted and a turning movement count was commissioned. He said that a traffic signal control device was not warranted at this time, but it would be monitored. We did not agree with the midday peak period safety investigation. The testing should have been done during the morning and afternoon rush hours and during Friday night and Sunday night summer holiday traffic times. It's almost impossible to get out of our streets onto Simcoe at these times. They also stated that by going by their collision records, 3 accidents have been recorded in the last 3 years, which we found unacceptable. Which brings us to the recent events, and that is that the region on February 28 increased the speed limit on a portion of Simcoe Street between Castle Harbor Drive and Riverview Drive to 60 kilometer an hour from 50 kilometer an hour with an 80 kilometers hour speed sign posted approximately 250 meters south of Castle Harbor Drive. This change did not make Castle Harbor intersection any safer. Vehicles travel along this roadway too fast, which makes left-hand turns dangerous. Residents in the area are afraid to cross Simcoe on foot, especially if they have small children. We need to make this stretch of road safer. We realize that our council does not have the authority to reduce the speed limit, as it is a regional road, but we respectfully request that a motion be passed that the mayor and council support to have our regional mayor and the mayor address this important matter at regional council. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Am I good? How's that? Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is not my first time coming to the council. I came to the council a few years ago in running a children's fishing tournament in town. So I made a conscious decision to move to Port Perry from Bowmanville and Oshawa, and I love this town. I've been coming here for almost 40 years. When I first got involved in this, I was a little bit concerned about the traffic. I live at 2 Stone Sound Road, which is right at the corner of Stone Sound and Simcoe. I'm just going to give you a quick presentation here. This is actually a picture of coming out of Castle Harbor Road looking north, and if you look, you can see a vehicle coming there. That seems to be ample amount of clearance where you could take a look north on the road and see if any cars are coming. But unfortunately, this is where you have to be in order to see clear up that road. What this does is it makes it extremely difficult for anybody to make a left turn coming south on Simcoe onto Castle Harbor Road. There is no double lane to make a left turn. If I pull back where we're legally supposed to stop, we have a bit of an obstruction there with the trees, but even if those trees were removed, we still have a berm. Now, my calculations of sitting there for almost probably close to 8 hours, is that if you're sitting at that stop sign making a left or a right, and a vehicle is coming at 80 kilometers an hour, you have approximately 5.7 seconds to 6.2 seconds to make a left turn out into oncoming traffic. Now, being the fact that I live on that corner, I can tell you that, as a rough number, 90% of the people coming down there are not doing 80. I have personally pulled people out of the ditch on the corner coming north, because what happens is as people turn north, turning onto Stone Sound Road, there is no left turning lane coming south. So people are driving onto the shoulder, coming back down the other way. When we look at this, this is the line basically where the stop sign is. So that 4 to 5 foot berm, even if you were to move that stop sign out further to pass the trees, you're still dealing with the berm. Now also, remember, when we're dealing with this, the first dotted line is where the turn is, not just where the turn is, but it is actually a change in elevation. So if I went back to that first picture, we're dealing with the 2 turns and a change in elevation. What we're looking at here is for Castle Harbor. You can actually see, even in Google Maps, recognizes that there's 2 turns in the road. When you see from Stone Sound Road, where I'm located, we have an awful long shot from the right-hand side coming down, but the left, we do not. Again, we've got just under 7 seconds to make a change, if it's at 80 kilometers, if we're lucky. So the proposal is to come from past Castle Harbor, like my neighbor had mentioned, up to Whitfield Road. When I take a look at this, I try to keep the emotions out of it and just try to deal with the facts. Even last night while I was out with my son, there was 2 almost accidents, but I'll rephrase that. They're not accidents. They're just preventable occurrences. As we see that traffic coming down, and I knew what I was getting into when I moved into that area, But because we have Simcoe now that comes down to the 407, we're seeing an increased amount of traffic that's coming down there. And we know we're not going to get 80. We're getting 90 and 100. By pushing that out to 60, we're going to hopefully get that 70 to 80. And by having the law enforcement sit at Canterbury Commons, I'm sure that they're catching some speeders. But I'll tell you, as soon as you make that turn, you can see that car from half a mile away. What we're trying to do is just slow down that traffic coming into town. It's dangerous both left and right coming out of Castle Harbor. And at a Stone Sound, you know, there's 150 homes that are up in there. I have 4 cars coming out of my home. So if you look at it on average, we may see 400 to 500 people trying to make left or right turns, just going and coming, not doing regular business of the day. It's not an off-ramp, it's not a bridge, it's a 4x4 that we'd like to push out a little bit. And I'll help, I really will. I love this town, I just want to try to keep it safe, and I don't understand why it's such a big hurry to get in here, so, yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for the delegation. So now, at this time, we'll hand it out to, I'll offer up for councilors to ask questions. I do know that Councilor Back and myself had responded, as you know, the regional requirements, it's the regional road, but I'm going to hand it over to Councilor Drew first. I said Councilor Back, I meant Councilor Drew, sorry. And then Councilor Back will be next up. Thanks. Councilor Drew first.
Thank you. On behalf of another resident close by, I have talked to the region about this, and they've done extensive studies on it, and the police have monitored it. Having said that, your presentation was excellent, and I'm wondering if you would be willing to do this presentation for Mr. Pummett
most certainly.
From the regional offices. So that's my point. I know that there has been extensive studies, and that's what resulted in the 60-kilometer. I question, too, why it didn't go further, but you have to realize I'm also getting feedback that it doesn't need to go north from residents. So, you know, we get it from both sides.
Yeah, and God we trust, everybody else bring data. So.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, I just want you to know that there has been extensive study done on this, and they are closely monitoring it, and they've been closely monitoring the traffic volume as well. They've got data from before the 407, when the 407 was free, and then they're going to take data, they may have already done it, after the 407 has started charging. So they're getting that data too, as well as truck traffic, how many trucks there are, so on and so forth. So they got lots of data down there, but your presentation was excellent, and I'll see if I can arrange for you to meet with Mr. Pummett.
Wonderful,
Okay?
I thank you for that opportunity.
Okay.
And just to add to the questions about the timing and et cetera, which could be clarified.
Yeah, I travel around quite a bit, so if I get a little bit of notice, that'd be fantastic.
And I meant the timing of when the study, midday versus...
Oh, yeah, the timing, I mean, information and data can be gathered at different times, and we live there 24 hours a day, so.
Yeah.
Just further that, I'm not sure exactly. I have to look up on my information, because I do have a package on this whole situation. I have to look up and see when they did that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Councilor Back is next.
Thank you, through the mayor, and thank you for coming to council. I know some people really don't like coming and speaking in public, but I know that this is a huge issue. I'd like to make a note also of those 400 to 500 cars that exit this subdivision. There is no other streets to exit. There is that road, which is half unassumed, which is Indian Way, and nobody, unless you're on a 4x4 ATV, would go on that road. I mean, it's a shortcut to get to Trading Post, but you're going to lose your car in the huge potholes because it's an unassumed road, and even in the winter when there's ice and snow, you still fall in those. So there isn't a third exit. There are only 2 exits to get out, and you have to think which is the best of what. I personally live in that subdivision, and I know exactly what you're saying. I have to pull out on Simcoe, or I have to go straight onto Line 8, minimum 2 times a day, usually 4 to 6 times a day. And you almost want to say hallelujah when you get to that Castle Harbor stop sign and there's no cars. It's a weird thing. I'd like to also add that the amount of heavy gravel trucks in the past year on Simcoe has been
out of bounds, and I think it was because, and they're not supposed to be on Simcoe, they're supposed to be, that route is supposed to come down 7, and then across 7A, and then over to 57. And I believe that they were using it because of the culvert construction on, just north of Reach, I believe, and I'm hoping that, they're gonna start using it again, but that's a huge concern for residents as well in Canterbury Common. I'd also like to note that since I've moved here 7 years ago, there were at least 3 T-bones at the trading post coming for vehicles pulling out of Whitfield going south. And I know of at least 1 fatality. There may have been 2 fatalities of those customers coming from trading posts simply going to get their groceries and not coming home. So, there have been very serious issues, very serious accidents, and this is a huge concern. I'd like to also point out in our other correspondence on page 109, and I think it's really important.
Back, we're not at the correspondence there.
Oh, I can't make that?
This is time for questions for delegation right now.
Okay. Question is, what do you think of the fact that, Stone Sound, Castle Harbor, and Whitfield are within the urban boundary, and we have an 80-kilometer, where most municipalities have a 60-kilometer within their urban boundaries?
Basically, my thought on this with is the amount of cars that we see that are in that area, with, I think you counted 142 homes. 150 homes. Like I said, I have 4 cars in my residence, so I mean, even if we're looking at 2 cars, we're looking at 300 people. I really don't believe, in my own opinion, that it's really a rural area. I'd like to sell it that way, but I'm never going to sell, but I don't think it is. I really don't.
Okay. And Councillor Somerville's next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I've lived on that road for 50 years. And I'm not kidding you, it has changed in the 50 years. It was used to be local traffic, it is now traffic. I live close to Seagrave, I just live north of you, right on the main road. I sympathize with you, but we need to change the whole speed limit down to 40 kilometers. Because you've got Seagrave people, you've got Kings Bay, you've got Sun Valley, you've got Robin Glades, you've got Mariposa Estates all coming out, plus all the people from the north that are coming in from Lindsay and all around the north side of the lake. It's not just traffic coming from way far away. It's all coming from our area. I would like to change the speed limit, but some days I have to sit there for at least 2 to 3 and sometimes 5 minutes to get out on the highway, and especially if I'm crossing the highway. So your distance is no different than what our distance is, because if you're going to change it up to the trading post, you might as well go right to Seagrave and change the whole thing right up there, because it's dangerous driving. And I've had dogs, cats, and everything hit on that road, because it's a wild road, and especially between 7 and 8:30 in the morning. That's when the big heavy traffic is. Coming home is 4:30 to 6, because I can look out my window and I can see one line of traffic coming. And if you've got to do a crossover, you can't do it. So I totally sympathize with you, but if you're going to do it one way, you might as well do the whole thing, because you guys down there are no different than what we are up there.
Questions, Councillor Somerville?
Sorry, I just have to say that, because I know, I can totally sympathize with you.
So my question would be, would you like to see it go up to Seagrave? Yes, I would support that.
Yes, take it all the way if you have to, because it's ridiculous. But you did mention, one question, you did mention north of the trading post. Where did you consider north of the trading post?
Well, I'd let the region try to figure that one out, where the safest spot would be for them.
I think a collaboration with a bunch of people who have a little bit more information further north than what I am. I think if people can't keep themselves, safe, I think we need to, Port Perry is a wonderful place to come, but let's just try to slow it down a little bit coming in. Enjoy the sights.
Yeah, the Durham region do patrol that pretty good, because I've been pulled over a couple of times from speeding along there too. So.
You're part of the problem. What kind of car do you drive?
But it's only because I was taken off from my driveway trying to get in front of somebody else. That's the only reason why I was speeding, so.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, save it for the court.
But I did get off, because I had to tell them the reason why.
I trailer a boat. This is one of the reasons why I love living in this area, and, I worry about the, when I'm coming south and I'm making that left turn on the Stone Sound, it's dangerous, because, let's face it, people are And the more people that drive on those shoulders, they're not meant to be driven on, and they're dangerous, right?
And it's not gonna get any better.
No, ma'am.
It's gonna get worse. Thank you.
Other councilors? Okay, so, just, Councilor Back has moved that the delegation be, received, and then you have a follow-up motion. So we'll deal with the receiving the delegation first, but I wanted to say thank you very much. I think that it's, bringing, further in-depth attention to it. Safety, obviously, is a paramount concern within the municipality. You know, we recognize that, yes, there's soccer fields that are technically within walking distance, but to send your, say, participants to go walk across that road would be, I would imagine everybody's driving, because they wouldn't want to be dangerous. So, and we know that they're pulling in and out, especially cross, traffic southbound, either if you're on the west or the east side of Simcoe Street, cutting across the traffic, and we do know that there are issues with speeding there, and the 407, the fact that Simcoe Street is the closest access to the 407 until that opens all the way over to 115, I think for the next until 2020, or if they're on target,
Yes.
we're going to be dealing with that increased traffic, plus increased subdivisions, et cetera, and population. So I think that was a good point that what Councillor Drew had said, but we'll deal with a motion that's following up after receiving of the delegation here. So thanks again for attending and bringing more attention to this matter. So all those in favor of receiving for information? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, Councillor Back has moved a motion that the Region of Durham requested to change the speed limit from 80 kilometers an hour to 60 kilometers an hour in the section of Simcoe Street from south of Castle Harbour Drive to north of Whitfield Road. Now, there's been some comments from Councillor Drew about getting some further presentation from the members there to add more of insight into it. I would suggest that we, instead of just doing a blanket resolution without them giving a defense to it, I would just kind of recommend that we change that motion to get them involved with it, and with that presentation, so they can have a more wholesome understanding of it. Councillor Back.
Does the township have that presentation on file to give it to the region, or will our delegation have to go in person?
Yeah, the delegates said that, Councillor Drew, that they'd be willing to meet with the manager of traffic, Mr. Bennett. So if that could be either direction or part of, or make it my suggestion is, if you're going to have the resolution or motion, to have that, to make it part of that, with looking at that as part of the analysis. So and there's also comments about Councillor Somerville too. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just 80 to 60 in that area. So, Councillor Back,
I have a question. When is that comprehensive bylaw going to happen about the speed? Because as Councillor Somerville said, these 80 kilometers need to be addressed in the rural roads. I have even an old Simcoe gravel north of 8th line that they don't want at 80. So when is that coming? I don't know who's in charge of that.
Ms. Coleman, you'd be the next up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, you're talking about the traffic bylaw update, correct? We just received the draft copy of it, and we're reviewing it now, so hopefully it will be in a position to be brought forward in June of this year. But I haven't been through it all yet, so I'm not sure how long it'll take.
Okay, so having said that, I'm just looking at rewording of a motion that, or suggestion, just because if it goes like this to a motion there, I think it's easily taken out of context. That's just my suggestion, that either allow for the changes. Councillor Back?
So do you want me to add to this? Do you want me to give you the
Councillor Drew,
wording, or?
I would just ask Councillor Drew to add some thoughts to it, because you would have be bringing it forward with the region, so.
I would suggest that, that Mr., I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Mr. Dunn.
Yeah.
That Mr. Dunn's presentation be forwarded to Mr. Pamet, and perhaps a meeting, and that the region reconsider their traffic speed limit in that area.
Councillor Watton, you had your hand up before that, so I just want to recognize that.
Well, I'm just curious, is this an additional motion to the delegation, or a motion to the correspondence?
this is
Or a notice of motion, I'm not sure which this is.
a motion as a result of the delegation.
We don't have it, right?
Right. Counselor Back had communicated with the clerk, I'm assuming that it was part of the page for the recommended, or the motions that came forward here, so. All right. It was in the red file, yeah. Counselor Back?
Yes, may I request that the word perhaps be omitted and that actual, Mr. Dunn and, Mrs., I always mess up your, Hamilton Dicker, meet with the staff member of the region. I think that it needs to be an in-person meeting.
Yeah. I would suggest that, so, Mr. Clerk, do you need that reiterated to make sure we captured all that? Or could you repeat what? Yeah, so we're just a request to the region, because us as, both Regional Councilor Drew and myself will be willing to meet with the staff, and if Mr. Dunn and Ms. Hamilton Dicker are willing to participate with us, we can only ask that the region sits down with us for that, so that'll be a request then. So, all right. You need to I would prefer if it was reread there, what you have, just so we all know what we're voting on.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that the region of Durham be requested to change the speed limit from 80 kilometers per hour to 60 kilometers per hour on the section of Simcoe Street, south of Castle Harbour Drive to north of Whitfield Road, and that Mr. Dunn's presentation be forwarded to Mr. Pamet of Durham Region, and that a request for a meeting be set up to present their presentation to Mr. Pamet.
Councillor Drew? As Councillor Back, it's your motion, and I think I understand where Councillor Drew is going, because if we only have this in the motion, that's all to be looking at, versus Councillor Somerville's concerns and other residents' concerns, so I would like to leave it out wide open if you're okay with that. Okay, so Councillor Back is in agreement with the friendly amendment. Requested to revisit the request for speed limit reductions on Simcoe Street north of Port Perry, which would cover the whole spectrum. Okay, questions from council? See none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll go to next item is Mr. Ian Dougal is here, come on up. SCUAG representative for Durham Trails Coordinating Committee, Draft Provincial Cycling Network. While Mr. McDougall is coming up there, I failed to announce I have a pecuniary interest on the already pulled, extracted item from the consent agenda, 11.2, COM 1728, just so I don't forget to announce it when the time comes, and that's on the indoor pool feasibility study, as I reside across the street from Stockworth Development, which may cause a financial gain or loss with the development being there. So just want to make sure it's noted. Mr. McDougall.
Hello all, is that good? I'm Ian McDougall, I live at 56 Perry Street. I am the Durham Trails Coordinating Committee representative, citizen representative, and Jen Buck is the council representative. I'm here today to present, I had the privilege of going to the Ontario Bicycle Summit on April the 11th or 12th, I think it was, and at that summit they unveiled a draft provincial cycling network, and I'd like to go over that briefly with you, and hopefully we can rectify a problem that we don't exist. So on May 12th, the province announced part of Cycle-On Action Plan 1.0 was announced on the draft cycling network was revealed. This is a picture of it from space, basically. This is the southern Ontario portion, goes all the way up into northern Ontario. I'm going to zoom in on the next slide. There's SCUAG. It does not go through SCUAG in any meaningful way. It goes through the green line up on the left-hand side is the Trans-Canada Trail, and the pink line that goes through Glen Major and up to Uxbridge is the Greenbelt route, but it does not go through Port Perry at all in any way, shape, or form. And by not being on this network, basically looking at provincial dollars towards cycling, you will not have any coming your way. I'm going to page through here. Why is this important to our residents? Well, this is from the TMP. This is from the briefing slides from them. 20% of residents in Durham want more walking and cycling opportunities. They want complete communities in there and complete streets as well. So this is all part and parcel of what the citizens want in Durham. This is another slide from that same briefing notes. Talks about trip distances, and I mean 2 kilometers is a distance that's talked about a lot, because anything within 2 kilometers is usually considered walkable. Within 5 kilometers is considered cyclable. This is a great slide that talks about, it says cycling from the TMP study, cycling on higher volume roads is intimidating if there are bicycle facilities are not present, and thank goodness Councillor Buell with the help of the Region Canada 150 grant example is the Reach Road. When you came to the end at Northport, you couldn't cycle into town because there was no shoulder, there was nowhere to ride. It was really quite dangerous. So, but that's a good example in terms of when we're forced out on the urban roads, or arterial roads, we need a little bit of cycling room just to be able to get safely back onto the road where everybody likes to cycle, which is Ashburn and those roads. Here's outdoor biking. This is a slide from the Durham Biking Association presentation for the Ontario Bike Tourism Center. They estimate on a regular weekend in the summer, we're seeing 4,000 riders on a regular week basis out of the Durham Forest. So there's a lot of people riding. They're coming a long way to go to Durham, Dagmar, Walker Woods in this area. In terms of road cycling, how far is Skooga, would people come here? Those are 2 rings. This is from Durham, from Bruce's presentation here last year, which shows Skooga at 15 kilometers. Uxbridge is an easy hit, North Oshawa, Brooklyn are all easy roads for us to get to, as well as Blackstock and Whistleton. At 30 kilometers it's further, but for the average road cyclist, that's not a long way, so out and back is 60K. So there's lots of riders that might come up to Burberry. People wonder, well, would they actually do this ride? This is one I pulled off of just the web a little bit, and here's Agent Court to Port Perry. So this is a long club road. This is 127K, going right up into a little bit in the area, up into Block. But there's lots and lots and lots of these roads out there. Okay, here's actually riding border rides. Well, this is a slide from the Epic Tour to Halton. It's the largest Grand Fondo in Ontario, so that's like basically you're riding 100 to 160 kilometers. The cyclist profile, 58% of them have incomes of over $150,000 a year. So a lot of times when they'll ride through places like Port Perry with their cycling buddies, they'll just be going through, they'll fill up the water bottle and they're gone. But they're coming back with their wives and their kids to your restaurants, to your streets, to your venues. How did we end up off the map? Well, we have to go back to the 2008 Regional Cycling Plan, and this was kind of broad strokes, as the regional explained to me. They said, okay, well, how are we going to link everything? They had Simcoe Street, Brock Road, and Lake Ridge Road, and then we each tied it together. In the next version, they realized, and I think at that time, they basically had a 50-50 sharing proposal, so that we were going to pay 50% of the cost to moving up Simcoe Street. The next time the plan came out, they had stripped off Simcoe Street and moved it over to Ashburn Road. Keep in mind, this is a regional cycling plan. This is through the Transportation Department. This is not meant for recreational purposes. Along came the next TMP, then along came the Greenbelt route. The Greenbelt route came through Stouffville. My understanding was they were going to go straight across through Myrtle and straight over. Uxbridge fought tooth and nail to get onto the Greenbelt route, onto the main route. The really small route that kind of goes through Port Perry, which is called the Skooga Countryside Cruise, but it's not signed, it's not promoted, there's no dollars thrown around it, it's just kind of a sideshow, which is a real travesty that Port Perry didn't end up on the Greenbelt route. There was hope though, because I was hoping that eventually we could get this rectified and get the yellow line to be red, and the red line that goes down Ashburn to be yellow, so we could drive those tourists to Port Perry, and also the cyclists from Port Perry, we could get that. But the region this year had has asked the Greenbelt, friends of the Greenbelt to revise the route to remove the section on Simcoe Street, because the problem is they feel the section on Simcoe Street is not safe. They feel it's not safe for cyclists to come out from Old Simcoe, onto Simcoe Street and over the coats or over to Shirley. So, here's another picture of, this is the region's, TMP plan right now for transportation for cyclists. As you know here, there's a conceptual connection between Port Perry and Oshawa. The region just defines it as conceptual, but in reality, it's actually not conceptual. It exists today. People are riding consistently down Old Simcoe, out onto Simcoe Street, up to Coates, across town line, and then down Thornton. It's done regularly. It's done all the time. It's conceptual, but it's really not conceptual. It actually exists. This is what the region submitted, and how else did we end up not on the provincial network? This is what the region submitted to the province for consideration for the provincial network in our area. So basically, the red dots are barriers and the green dots are destinations. Good examples, if you look at what Nick put in for Block Township, you'll see he's got Sunderland, Kensington, Beaverton, and he's got a dot out in the lake as if he'd go visit the lake. And then he's got, the red route is basically all he's really requesting, which is Highway 12 added. In Scugog, the only destination we would consider in Scugog apparently is Port Perry. And I would argue that the region really should have put on a dot over somewhere in the four hamlets on the eastern side, so Blackstock, Nestleton, Caesarea, or in Calgary, because there's definitely a drive over there along with the lake. And the other dot that should have been on this map is probably at the Grape of Heron, so at the island. And the other thing is a dot for a barrier, in terms of our purposes, I think is inadequate. The lake is a barrier from any east-west travel in our area. So it's not actually a dot, it's the whole lake is the barrier. And on the south end, the Oak Ridge Marine is the barrier of north-south travel in our area. So it's not really showing.
So, Mr. McDougall, I don't know how much left there is, but,
Yep.
I don't know if you could summarize or sum up or quickly go through any of the remaining slides, like,
Fair enough.
within a minute.
So, these are the areas that I think from a higher order network perspective that we could use assistance, mainly being 7A from Port Perry Island over to Blackstock, etc. The Island Road, Shirley Road, but number one is that section at Simcoe Street where we all come West Forest State on the Simcoe. So I would say number one is Simcoe, and then next is 7A. This is a letter of support that Your Worship has gathered from Grenville and Anderson supporting our endeavors to get on the draft provincial map. And here's the last slide, which is on the map, which is us, and basically we don't exist. And I'd like to change that with your help.
Okay, thank you very much for that quick, high-level update report. Mr. McDougall, just for the benefit of that letter that was there, brought this to my attention after I think it was one of the meetings that you were at, and so I reached out to Granville Anderson to get his support to look into this further. And the letter that you saw there was Granville sending a letter of support for including that. So I'll now open up for questions from council so that we can answer some of the uncertainties and how we move forward from here. So Councillor Back is up first, and Councillor Drew, and then... Okay.
Thank you, through the mayor, and it's a pleasure to serve on the Trails Committee with such an intelligent resident that is also an avid cyclist. And I concur with you with economic development. Those cyclists love craft brewery, they love the beer, they love the lattes, they love the butter tarts. And if they come to our town and they see that they can get all of those, they'll be coming back with their families and their wallets, and that's a huge, huge gain for our downtown area. So how do we get on this map?
Mr. McDougall, I mean, the letter of support is there, and then there's some other thoughts here. So what is who is the decision maker? Considering it's a regional road, is Simcoe Street, but and the Greenbelt is a provincial.
My suggestion is for us to get on the map would be for me to provide probably someone, say Kevin, in your office, a list of routes that should be added to this, and then have that supported by council if possible to say, we recognize thank you for creating the provincial network, but we'd like to add these routes to be wholly recognized and include Port Perry.
Okay. Councillor Beck, did I answer your question? Next was Councillor Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Ian.
Thank you.
Mr. McDougall.
Thank you.
What is it you're looking for from us? A letter of support?
A letter of support to get Port Perry at least, if not other areas in our municipality.
To the province?
Yes.
Okay, okay. The countryside route that you referred to that goes through Port Perry, whose responsibility is it for that signage that you said is lacking? Is that the region, or is it us, or is it the province?
The province provided funding for the Greenbelt route signage, but they didn't provide funding for any of the other signage.
So we could include that in our letter of support?
You could, but unfortunately, I don't think that would, I would think if anything, you would ask for an adjustment to the Greenbelt route, but that's really a separate body from the draft.
You would prefer the countryside route to be part of the Greenbelt route?
The Greenbelt, yes, the Greenbelt route should be adjusted to go through Port Perry.
Okay.
Yes, and fully understand that the complexity of the compound curves at Simcoe Street is the reason that the Greenbelt route does not come through Port Perry. The Friends of the Greenbelt and the Waterfront Regeneration Trust who created the Greenbelt route fully wanted to bring it through Port Perry, but it was at resistance at the region level that, just for safety concerns, that they were not allowed to bring it through. And again, last year when they redid the Scugog Countryside Cruise, they actually take it down and they don't come out onto Simcoe Street, and they have the Countryside Cruise going across Line 2. And if anyone's been across Line 2, in the middle of summer it's a dust bowl, and right now it's a quagmire. So it's never going to happen. And I mean, similarly, Scugog Line 2 is supposed to become eventually a regional road all the way to Highway 12, and that's pie in the sky. So this stuff is way out in the future. But we have real cycling routes that really exist right now that we really ride, and those are the ones I just want to say, let's not let them go, demolition through neglect, but we don't want to lose those routes. So Shirley Road is a route that hopefully if the region finalizes the draft for paved shoulders for maintenance purposes, that would make a big difference for us. The same thing eventually, like we would have had a proper shoulder on Simcoe Street if they would have had that already in place. So we have great cycling, but we need a few key spots fixed.
Other questions from council? Councillor Kett?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Ian. Would you suggest Old Scugog?
Old Scugog and Blackstock?
Up to Blackstock and then over into Port Perry?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on the map for the Durham Region Cycle Tours. So it's highly rated.
Old Scugog, not Old Simcoe.
No, Old Scugog, Old Simcoe, and actually 57 north of like 7A. Naturally, we come out on 7A. We turn off to Caesarea, and then we go north 57 all the way over to River Road, etc.
Great.
Yeah.
Don't forget the casino.
And Edgerton and Divots are very good roads as well. Mountjoy, if we can get to it. Sorry.
Other questions from council? Okay, Councillor Drew. Okay, I have a motion that's here in front of me, and I think it'll be amended though with that, so let's start off in order with the motion moved by Councillor Backer, a delegation be received, as well as the council request the provincial government alter the provincial cycle network to include a link to Port Perry as a key tourism destination. I've made some notes for amendments to theirs that hopefully Councillor Back would accept, but why don't you ask yours or...
Basically, that was it, with letter of support to the province, addressing the issues by Mr. Ian McDougall, with a copy to the region.
I guess it would be taken as direction that working with Mr. McDougall and staff to identify the key routes. You already have identified them, but just to make sure they're on. Any comments or questions? All right, so is that fine for that amendment on there, Councillor Drew? Is that, okay, all right. Mr. McDougall, does it capture everything in that?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's complex, but right now I just want to get this on the map.
Time is of the essence, right? That's why we want to get something there, and I think a resolution from council will carry more weight with a letter of support as well. Right. Okay, so, any questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Mr. McDougall.
Thank you.
Next up, we have declare pecuniary interest before 9.3. To ask Mr. Ray and Sharon, Ray Smith and Sharon Dodson-Smith to come forward with a report. A delegation, I mean, sorry.
Sorry.
Good afternoon. Just before we start, I just well, thank you for presenting this. A couple councillors have declared pecuniary interest, so obviously they've left, and as you understand, when we get to the question part of it, that because we haven't dealt with the actual matter, which is on May 29th, then you may just have questions specifically on clarifications, but since the matter is still before us or has been deferred, then won't be maybe as wholesome a discussion as what you think it will be. It's not because it's not taken into consideration, just for the clarification process. So with that, please proceed.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor, councillors. Thank you for seeing us.
Just make sure your mic and...
Seems to be on. We are Sharon and Ray Smith, 184 Roseboro Drive. On April 17th, we submitted correspondence to the Township Mayor and Council regarding the report of an integrity commissioner in the matter of a complaint against 2 councillors. Our correspondence directly addresses a matter that is before council, so we had expected it to be included in the council meeting agenda for April 24th as correspondence to be received for information, recognizing, as you point out, Mr. Mayor, that discussion and decisions on the subject had been deferred until May 29th. Clerk informed us that the recently revised order of business at council meetings per the procedure bylaw only allows delegations or correspondence to be included with items already on the agenda. However, section 7.20 of the procedure bylaw, consideration of business, does state that delegations wishing to address council with respect to a matter before council should address council rather than committee. And section 725B says that correspondence of interest to council or requiring council direction will be included in the council agenda. It's important to recognize that our correspondence was directed to council for precisely the above reasons. So it should have appeared on the April 24th agenda to have it in council's hands and in the public record for consideration. It is imperative that Scugog residents have proper access to address council and be included in the agenda. We now understand there have been further developments in this matter, including the fact that the issue has been brought before the Ontario Ombudsman for review, and that a supplementary report containing considerable confidential information has been released and is included in today's agenda. We believe it would be inappropriate for us to address any new information, and we leave you with the contents of our original correspondence for your consideration and for your information. We believe it speaks for itself. The process through which the Integrity Commissioner's report came to be raises many questions. As for our correspondence and as taxpayers, we do want answers to these questions. We also want to understand how procedures were not complied with throughout, including the authorization of expenditure, as we understand it now, of over $26,000 of public money on this inquiry. That concludes our presentation. We're willing to accept questions, but we do recognize, as you pointed out, Mayor, this is a sensitive issue.
Thank you very much for delegation. So just again, a reminder of Council just to keep anything in the form of a question for clarification. Questions from council? Okay, as understandably, that just don't take it, that there's no questions that it's not being considered or dealt with, it's just because of the nature of this being deferred, and I think your report was concise and clear, and that questions at this time in front of you are not required, so thank you very much for the report. I have a motion by Councillor Somerville that the presentation be received regarding the Integrity Commissioner. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item up, we had 9.4, which was pulled from the, we don't have a delegation from Canterbury Common Adult Lifestyle anymore. We now move on to, oh yeah, sorry, I just wanted to announce that Ms. Leslie Banner withdrew that presentation, so we voluntarily withdrew it. So the next item is the consent agenda. I need a mover for the consent agenda. We have, and then I will take polls that have already, I'll announce which ones have been pulled already, and the ones that were, as noted, there were extractions already predetermined for the council that require pecuniary interest and other items that needed to be pulled out. So for section, we're going to deal with section 10 first, then section 11. So a mover for the consent agenda, Councillor Guido. Polls, extractions, Councillor Guido, you have a question on that?
I just had an extraction, I didn't get a chance to do the folder before
So,
me.
all right, oh yeah, so I was going to ask for further extractions here. So extractions for Councillor Guido, I could also announce which ones have been initialed here to make it so that you can follow along here. The COMS 02, or CAO 2017-02, which is the Forest Gugog Charity Golf Tournament, is pulled by Councillor Back. Waste Management Municipal Buildings, Councillor Back. Ice Allocation Policy, Councillor Guido. Final Levy Bylaw, Councillor Back, that's 10.2.6. And then Summary of Recommendations is 10.3.1, Councillor Back. 10. Banning balloon releases in the correspondence by Councillor Somerville, that's 10.4.4. And I pulled a 10.4.5 Heritage Tree Program by myself. Quick comment, or quick suggestion. And that's all that's been pre-pulled, and any other polls, Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 10.3.4, please.
Can you see, this sheet here just has the name
Oh,
on it.
sorry, the minutes from the downtown BIA.
BIA minutes, okay.
And 10.3.2, the Economic Development Advisory Committee, please.
What item was that? Should be here. That's SEAC. Okay, this is Google Environmental Advisory Committee. Okay, so, all right, Councillor Somerville.
$11.3.
Already extracted, item 11's ones are all extracted.
Oh,
They're
that's
already
extracted,
four
okay.
ones.
That's good.
Councillor Drew?
10.4.4 has already been pulled, but I wanted that one pulled as well.
Okay.
I have a general question for 10.3. Oh, it's advisory committee.
10.4.4 was the first one then? Correspondence, okay. All right, Councillor, any other polls? Councillor Watt? The building permit one? The building permit 10.2.7, which is the building permit revenue report. Okay, any other polls? All right, and we have the pecuniary interest items that have also been identified, which will be pulled and voted on separately. So, no other polls? On the remainder, all those in favor? Carried. Items to be extracted, the first one was Councillor Somerville with the For Scugog Charity Golf Tournament. Councillor Bax. Councillor Bax.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor, I just have a question. If, on page 19, under discussion, section 2, second paragraph, the recommendation is to continue with the Scugog Youth Initiative format. However, an alternative would be to join with a local youth organization or local youth charity and have them be the beneficiary of the tournament and work together on organizing the event. And I just read somewhere, I'm not sure if it was the paper or the Focus, it may have been the Focus on Scugog, the article of the SYC, the SYC, Scugog Youth Club, or Center? I think it's the Scugog Youth Center that's just starting to get off the ground. If perhaps there could be more discussion with staff to bring a report to council on the feasibility of if we would be open to the tournament changing from the format that we are now to supporting this new initiative.
I know that Lisa Fitton and the other staff run that. The Scugog, I'm trying to remember, is that the one that Adrian is? Yes, so I know that Adrian Grant has been received funds from 100 Women Who Care, and she's had meetings with Manager of Recreation, Mr. Belfry, and myself, and actually that conversation did come up. I had thrown around some suggestions. I actually had a conversation with Ms. Fitton about maybe having a threshold to keep, like say, as an example, that youth center joint efforts, that maybe anything over and above 8,000 goes towards the youth center, but then we still keep a base amount to go with the smaller benefactors of the youth in the community, so it's not just going to one organization, but then that organization would help raise funds and increase it, so where we're anywhere from $10,000 to $14,000 raised, well, if it's 8,000 as a base threshold, anything over and above that goes towards the youth one. I think that would be, Ms. Fitton said that would be received. She would bring that back to the staff group that are there, but she said that's why I think it's in this report, is because it was brought up before. But I know that that's an ask for youth to have some sort of drop-in center that is missing a void in the community, so the fact that there's gaining more momentum, it's a real possibility. I would definitely support that. So, did you have other questions with that, or you're just bringing it up as a suggestion for that?
Thank you. Through the mayor, either as a suggestion or if you would advise me to put a motion forward, I'd be willing to do so. I would suggest other councillors have an opportunity to question or comment. I don't want to, this is a very staff-involved to date, and I would not want to, not have their input on it fully, wholesomely, like maybe a recommendation to bring it to them to come back with it would be suggested. Councillor Watton? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great idea, but I would like to suggest that the council of the day would decide that they were supporting such an initiative as the Scugog Youth Center with something that has come to us before we start making plans to support it without a wholesome council decision to do so.
100% agree with you. I've actually asked them to do a delegation to council, and I just received an email saying that they're trying to get onto the agenda, so it's part of the initiatives, because I think, you're 100% correct that council is not privy to all the, except for staff and myself, have had meetings on whether there would be a way or interest to garner support with other facilities, and the conversation has just unfolded to funding, etc. And I said your best avenue is to come before council with a delegation. So having staff be prepared with that and having something go to that Gulf Committee, I think would be wise to have them aligned with that one, or to have the council delegation first. I think that, look to see the rest of council. Councillor Drew? Okay. Council questions over here? Okay, so, then, is it, knowing that there's a pending, I'm just looking at the clerk to see if there was any requests for delegations on a timing basis, because we're coming up to the summer recess. I know this is a long process, it's not something that's gonna happen overnight, it's just to make sure that before the Gulf Committee gets too far into a process, if they've identified that, then, they might wanna know timing-wise what they would do, so.
Through Mr. Mayor, no, I have not received any delegation requests.
Okay. Councillor Watt?
Just further to that, when they are youth initiatives, do they apply to the township anyway for funding, correct? So, like, to start the ball, they could do that, if they did not get in as a delegation, they could ask for support through for SCUGOG anyway, could they not?
Yeah, staff takes care of that. I don't know if they have thresholds, limits. I know there's varying amounts based on a report, so, again, being careful. Yeah, so then, what is the wish of council, just a direction to the committee, or I think they might want some guidance from us on you know, what they would like, or what they'd like to entertain. I think they've given us a guiding document here, but I guess I want to make sure that we have a delegation in time before the committee, so it's up to the delegates to put that forward, so. Councillor Drew?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just hesitate to give direction to this staff committee, but also the fact that if they wanted some financial support, they could apply the same as everybody else for funding for SCUGOG. So, you know, I would hate to give preference to one. We're kind of going off with a procedure that's been in place for quite some time. I think it's up to the staff committee, but I think that they should just make their requests the same as everybody else.
No, I'm not talking necessarily about that. I'm talking about what Councillor Back had brought up here, this possible change of reference from the golf tournament of partnering up with other. That's where this all started from, was this comment that was done by, did Lisa pen this report? Yes, so this is from the committee. Not the recommendations. Yeah, so the recommendation is just general in terms. It doesn't. It just says that was a potential opportunity. So I guess we'll have a more wholesome discussion when the delegation comes before us. So the clerk has just said there's a delegation request for June. So can wait for that. All right. Any other questions for council? So recommended motions put forward, mover and a seconder for those reports. Councillor Back had pulled the motion, pulled it. Are you moving the recommendation? Okay. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. Next item is waste management, municipal buildings. Councillor Back.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I just have one question for our director. Did this include the soccer fields? And if it didn't, should we be looking at including the soccer fields? Because that's been we've been looking for the answer for the soccer fields for 2 years, and we haven't got a sort of response from that. It was monitored, and with these savings, it would be nice to have that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, we did consider it. It was brought up when I did the presentation on March 20th. And a discussion at staff level was that because it's an area that doesn't have eyes on it, we were afraid that there would be too much dumping in that area. we can address it by having, more waste bins or garbage cans and collect them more frequently if needed, but I don't think putting a bin out there is a good solution.
Okay, any other questions on that? Seeing none, Councillor Back, you move the report. Recommendations, all those in favor? Carried. Next item, Councillor Guido, ice allocation policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question to Mr. Belfry. On section 3.6 of your report, or page 44, regarding playoff ice, I just wanted some clarification on it. By the way that I read it, is that they need to submit an application, whatever, be it Junior C or North Durham Minor Hockey, needs to submit their application the third Friday in September, and then they have until the third Friday in January to turn back any ice. Otherwise, the township will only allow 50% of the ice confirmed to be returned. Does that mean that if they think they're going to make the playoffs and they don't end up making the playoffs, they're still going to have to pay for 50% of the time that they've requested?
Through the mayor to the councillor, within that clause, it says they're encouraged to submit an application. It's not necessary. Most teams, and if for the minor association, would know in December where they're headed, and that's why we put it the third week. They can look to book ice back in September, like put in some dates when they think they're going to go, but we're encouraging, and we're trying to line up more the booking process. So through that process, we're hoping that people can look at their traditional times and think when they would have playoffs, but it's not, they have until the third Friday of January, which they will have a really good idea, and at that point, they're only going to probably book their first round or whatever and know where they are, and then they would fall to the subsection of the policy where they can drop it within 10 days, and we're just trying to stop the process of like a blanket book then drop, which costs us revenue. Like most of the groups are pretty good at switching off ice, and we're trying just to line that up in a procedure so it helps the booking staff, because at that time of year we go through cancellations, like we're up to 40, 50 cancellations and ice changes in contracts, and it becomes really all over the place, so we're trying to develop that process. So they're not going to be penalized in that sense, because most groups, like say the Mojacks book ice and they book for 1 round, 2 rounds, but they get knocked out in the first round, they're usually going to drop ice, and then minor hockey will take that because their teams are going to go forward. And with the new North Durham, there's going to be a lot more groups in there who are going to be scrambling looking for ice. So I don't think we're going to have an issue, and I think for us it's just a way to manage the process and get people up front to tell us when they think they're going to go and when they're not going to go. And they can come in September. It's pretty far out to do that, but if they want to take sometimes like the first week of February or whatever, thinking they're going to be around that time, but a lot of teams are already in playoffs. Like, we know that they're in playoffs starting January, some of them, so it's just a way to line everybody up, and stop them from dropping ice and booking, and then we have nothing and we lose that revenue.
So, just to confirm though, if they do drop that ice, are they only being refunded the 50%?
If they drop that ice, if they've signed a contract that far ahead and we can't sell it, yes. If we can sell it, they'll get billed to $20 and it's off the place. It all depends on whether we can sell it or not.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, what was the feedback from the user groups on that?
We didn't really get a lot of feedback on that. The only feedback was the concern from the Mojacks had a big concern around that. They ran into some issues this year with minor hockey. They were looking for dates, and minor hockey, they weren't being as flexible as they had been in the past. We've assured them, like we've written clauses in here to protect the Mojacks and their traditional times, so they'll have that, and then moving forward with any playoffs, they'll still have to negotiate with minor hockey to fit that in, but we have our user group meeting in June and we lay all that out, like work together, and I think there's a lot of concern right now just with the new North Durham, how flexible they're going to be. That's the Mojacks' concern, but I think we bring everybody to the table and start anew and have everybody work together, and I don't foresee any problems, so.
Perfect. And then my next, it's on the same page, actually, right below that.
Mm-hmm.
If the client wishes to secure additional tryout ice, I'm sure like you, I've been spending a lot of time in the Uxbridge Arena lately in tryouts. Have they made any indication that they would like to split the tryouts between Port and Uxbridge?
We had some inquiries from the Old Port Perry Association a couple months ago, and we had basically said, at that point, we were already set for our summer schedule with the garden show and lacrosse and ball hockey, but we said going forward, if we know by November this year that there is that requirement for people, they want to move some of the tryout ice here, we're going to need a 30-hour minimum commitment a week to hold that ice. The biggest issue with that is they have to give us that ice commitment for a month before tryouts will start, because AA tryouts don't start till after AAA are done, and AAA is up in Kawartha area, so, and they go that month. So if Minor Hockey can, and other groups, like the Wolves have come to us, said they want ice, maybe the Mojacks do. If we can get 30 hours of users of that week, then we can hold that ice for the month and then get them to the tryouts, and then hopefully get some over here so we all stop driving over there. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belfry.
Councilor Watton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the same page, under 3.7, for the Blackstock Recreation Complex, if you could just clarify for me prime time and non-prime time, because it looks like Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. to 11 is both prime and non-prime on your report.
Through the mayor to the councilor, if you look at Blackstock, the first, when it's under prime time, it's Monday to Friday, 5 to 11 p.m., Saturday, Sunday, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. If you jump down the next section, non-prime, it's Monday to Friday, open to 5 p.m., so that's the hours before 5 p.m., and then 11 p.m. to close.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
Any other questions? So, moved by Councilor Guido, report has been pulled. Staff recommendations, all those in favor? Carried. Next item is Councilor Back pulled the final levy bylaw.
Thank you, through the mayor. So this would be to our Director of Finance on page 60. So it's section 2, discussion. It's the last point. Taxpayer payment not received on the due dates are subject to 1.25% interest. That amount estimated for 2017 has been estimated at $625,000. Where does that go as revenue? Is it into the budget, or because it's an unknown, you just estimate it and you don't actually put it in the actual 2017 budget? But when it does become an actual, where is that money, what is it used for, where does it go?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councilor, it actually is built into our budget. We have a penalties and interest line that is built into the budget, and that was the amount that we budgeted for 2017.
And through the mayor, where does that go then going forth? Is it used in 2017, for what reasons?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's part of your levy, it's part of the budget calculation, so it's used to pay for other expenditures. It's a revenue line item that's built into the budget, so it decreases, I guess, for sake, decreases the levy that comes out of everyone else.
So were you happy with that? It's not going anywhere specific? Okay. So any other questions on that? So moved by Councilor Back, the report that was pulled. All those in favor? Carried. Next item pulled was building permit and revenue report, moved by Councilor Watton, 10.2.7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, directed to our Director of Finance. On page 67, the year-end, the total expenses for the building department exceeded the revenue by $109,792, and then further down it says that our building reserve balance for 2016 is $114,943. My question is, what happens when the reserve is depleted and our expenses are greater than our revenues? Because there's not much left in that reserve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Right now, so under the Building Code Act, the Building Act, you cannot charge more for a building permit than it costs to administer. So this report is a legislative report that tells us how much revenue we've collected and how much it's costing us. So we we have to ensure that if our revenues were higher than our expenses, we would put money into this reserve. At this point, we technically could have pulled money into the reserve, but we didn't. We let it flow through, and at this point, this reserve, the $114,000 was there from prior years. So we haven't touched this reserve right now.
Okay, so traditionally, is that a comfortable, like, based on what you've said, is that comfortable zone to be in? Like, I mean, if it was $200,000 in expenses, what would happen if, what would it have looked like if our expenses had exceeded, like, and were $200,000?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess, assuming that we haven't totally finalized our expenditures for 2016, if this was causing us to be in a deficit, then we would look to bring money in to cover that deficit from the building reserve. So corporately, we did not have a deficit, or I don't believe that we have a deficit, so I'm not comfortable taking money out of this reserve because there is sufficient funds through our budget that will cover this deficit. I think it's more set up when we have building ups and downs that legislatively we have to put money into a reserve if we're collecting more. We don't have to, we're not legislated to pull money out if it costs us more.
Any other questions? Councillor Watton, you're good? Okay, moved by Councillor Watton. The report, staff recommendations, the report we received. All those in favor? Carried. Next item pulled was Councillor Back's summary recommendations, which is item 10.3.1, sorry, I was staring right at it. Councillor Back?
Thank you. Through the mayor. I have concerns with the recommendation that we're asked to vote upon today to recommend that the draft housing plan with a cover letter from the chair of the committee be forwarded to Mr. Victor Doyle, Manager, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. I believe this is premature. I don't believe it's best practice to send a draft plan written by residents and not wholesomely vetted by staff or approved by council to go to outside sources. So I would suggest that the housing plan be forwarded to Mr. Victor Doyle after it's approved by council.
Mr. Heritage is not here. Mr. Allure, do you have any comments on it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding with this, and maybe the regional councilor could correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand this is just sending the draft housing plan in a couple of places, one the ministry, one the region, more for comments than for anything else. Staff, as council know, are currently reviewing the housing plan and will be bringing recommendations back to council. So the plan is still considered draft, and I'm thinking that's what Councillor Back's concerns may be. It's not being forwarded in a final plan, but I think it's being forwarded, my understanding is just for some comments from the ministry, but leave that with council.
So Councillor Watton, as the councillor liaison to the committee, I just maybe look to you for clarification.
That's exactly right. Actually, we have been asked to forward it to them just so that they could provide comments, so that when it comes to this council, their comments and their consideration may be incorporated as well. Director Heritage has reviewed it as well, and a presentation was made to the region so that we could get comments and all be on the same page eventually for when it comes to this council. So it would go as a draft. It's not going as an endorsement or anything. It's going as a draft for comment, and that, I think, was the intent of the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Back?
Thank you for the mayor. What would it, if I may ask, what would it look like? Will it have Township of Scugog letterheads? The letter from the chair, is that a necessary part? And I know that we had a counselor that had a report that wanted to be forwarded to ministries, staff, and there was concern of that, of having township logos on the paper, looking like it's an endorsement or it's a final report from council. So what would it look like?
Well, at the moment, it is currently stamped draft all over it, and I don't believe it is on any municipal letterhead. And as an advisory committee, though, I would assume that a letter from a committee of council could go on letterhead, but that's just my prediction, and it's just would be going as the draft. But I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be an issue if Councillor Back, you don't, or if this council, I shouldn't say Councillor Back, if this council would prefer that it did not go on any letterhead. I'm not sure how that works through committees of council, so I'll leave it up to this council.
Thank you. And through the mayor, just because a councillor was not allowed to have letterhead, I would strongly state that I don't believe it's proper to have the letterhead on that.
Okay, Mr. Allure, you want to add something to it, just to clarify? I don't want to bat this around on that, but I just, I know it's going to have draft all over it, so what is your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The housing plan is marked draft. I don't believe it says Scugog on it, like from the township. But in this regard, if council was to endorse this recommendation, it would go on township letterhead based on this recommendation. We would send a letter to Mr. Doyle at the ministry indicating that council's agreed, or council's, based on this recommendation of the committee and endorsement of council, we're sending this to him for any comments he may have back. That would happen, based on this coming before council and council endorsing it.
So just to clarify, we're not saying we're supporting all of it or anything, we're just asking for comments, so, Councillor Back?
And through the mayor, I understand that, and I'm not saying I'm against the housing plan, I'm just saying that going forth as standard practice, we as a council endorsed a report or study by a councillor in council, and it was not allowed to have Township of Scugog letterhead, so I believe we need to be consistent and fair.
So I think that the difference between the reports, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and this draft plan has been circulated, staff have had the opportunity to be looking at it, commenting, vetting it, and then looking for comment from the other departments. So I don't read this resolution as that we are endorsing it, it's sending it there for comment. So I really think we're really trying to get into the weeds on this one. I have no issues with this going there as long as it's done as draft and seeking comment. So yeah, I think it's two different apples and oranges to me. Any other councillors? Okay, so Councillor Back, you pulled it, you don't want to be the mover. Anybody else? Councillor Drew moved it. Any other questions, comments on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item is Councillor Guido pulled the EDAC minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's regarding page 83 of our agenda under the development update, and I believe this question would be for, Director Heritage, who's not here, regarding Port Perry Legion lands have been purchased by Oxnard. That came as a very large surprise to myself. I am on the EDAC committee, but unfortunately I was unable to attend the meeting that day, so I was wondering if we could have some sort of an update on that, but if Director Heritage isn't here, I'm not sure if anyone else is prepared to speak to that.
Mr. Allure, I just gave you a chance to see if we have to get the more wholesome reply or not from it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and appreciate the comment, and I'm not familiar with this in detail to speak to it.
If council would like, I can have Mr. Heritage send more details through an email. He's probably left because of the other matter we were dealing with, some urgency in that regard. Routinely at these committee meetings, there's a portion on the agenda where some updates are provided, and I think we need to look, I'll talk to Mr. Heritage about, you know, the sensitivity of maybe some of the updates and making sure that these are known by council before they're provided to a committee, if that's the concern.
That was one concern. The other concern was just the fact that they had been sold in general, was just a surprise. And I'm surprised the phones haven't started to ring yet, but perhaps Councillor Back has had some questions in her ward. Anyways, that's all. Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Kett, and then Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mayor. This was kind of surprising, and as I said before, that the communication between the councillors and staff has to improve. People in Uxbridge and Brock found out at the same time we did. So, thank you.
Councillor Watt?
I would just be curious who provided the update, if it was from staff or if it was from a member of the committee. Because perhaps staff heard at the same time as the committee, as I know sometimes happens at these meetings.
And it is possible, but I know that we are, this was at the EDAC one, not the Tri-EDAC meeting, from the minutes I'm looking at here, and I was not at that committee, so I can't recall, obviously, so, but if any of this is coming through the staff, Mr. Allora and I have already had a conversation of making sure that we set up a process of communication and updates, even if, like, a lot of times, pre-consultations or people purchasing and like the subdivision lots purchased on the island, etc. It's just nice to have the heads up for all of council to receive at the same time, but there's a fine line between updating everything that's draft or tire kickers, etc. So it's figuring out a process on how everybody can be kept in the communication loop without a lot of information that hasn't gone through a full process. So there's going to be some process reconsiderations before, for communication efforts anyways, and ongoing. Any other questions? And I'll Mr. Allora has some ideas which I'll let him bring forward when he's ready to on enhancing some opportunities for additional communication avenues, as well as we'll have discussions with manager of communications too, which we know has been stretched really thin on other items, so there's some conversations that we'll be working on to make sure, because there's many things happening on the municipality, and it's somewhat almost impossible to keep up on any of the items that are happening. So this report was pulled by Councillor Guido. Any other questions? All those moving? Councillor Guido moved it. All those in favor? Carried. Next item is Councillor Guido pulled BIA minutes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on the agenda on page 87, they're reflective of minutes, and they should actually be reflective of unapproved minutes. They will be approved at tomorrow night's BIA meeting, and going forward, we will ensure that the minutes are reflected as unapproved until they are approved. One of the edits that I will be requesting at the meeting tomorrow night is on page 88 of these minutes, where it's indicating that Mr. Bill Miners read memo from Township that informed us that BIAs are covered under the Township's insurance program. It's actually the BIA directors are covered under the Township's insurance program. And further down, under motions, that a letter, this is a requirement under OMB rules. It's not OMB, it's the Municipal Act. So those two items will be cleaned up in the minutes tomorrow night when they're approved at the BIA meeting.
Okay, any other questions on this? Seeing none, moved by Councillor Guido. Do you need any clarification on that, or that's fine, it's just unapproved for reference? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. I had a note on here, I I don't think I announced that I pulled it, but it's already been passed, so I'm just going to circle back around with a comment or question on it. So, and that was on one of the MFAC minutes, but I didn't announce it being pulled, so I'm just circling back when we're done. The next item was Councillor Somerville on the banning balloon releases. Oh, on advisory committees? On 10.3, okay. Councillor Drew, I don't have that.
There is a report coming from the Core Services Review on the committee structure, and just wondering when that will be coming and when it will take effect.
Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the councillor. I expect to have that report before council in June. In terms of when it will take effect will depend on the recommendations and decision of council based on those recommendations moving forward.
Okay, thank you. One of the reasons I think for going through this, one of the reasons for going through this procedure was, first of all, that there are 16 committees plus some of the statutory committees, but one of the other reasons was that there were too many councillors on some of these committees. So as a councillor, if I wish to go to a committee that I'm not a member of, is it taking effect now that, like, I would not be able to sit at the table? And I appreciate that, and I would honor that. Is that part of the report that came before us months ago? Is that in effect now? I know some of it was passed. So is that in effect now that you do not sit at the table and take part in the meeting?
Yeah, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the councillor. It's a general rule that we shouldn't have 4 members of council at committee meetings because 4 makes a quorum, and then you have a committee council meeting. So, yes, it would be advised not to sit at the committee table if you were to attend, if there are 4 members going to be there, and then participating in the discussion or the vote.
Well, that's 4, that's a quorum. What about 3? Like, if there's 2 on the committee and then a third member of council shows up, do we sit away from the table and just observe? I believe that's what the recommendation was. Sorry to put you on the spot, it's just occurred to me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to the councillor. There was no specific recommendation to that in my presentation with regards to advisory committees. That would be advisable practice, but it wasn't specifically noted in my presentation with regards to advisory committees at that time.
Okay, just want to know how to conduct myself. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was just, before you comment on it, I was just going to say, at the region, all councillors are eligible to go, but they just address any members who are part of the committee first, and then after that has been dealt with, then go to non-committee members that are council members. So that's what I don't know if that's going to come forward on the recommendations or not, but that would be my recommendation. Councillor Orr. Mr. Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just further, I believe the recommendations and discussions that Councillor Drew is referring to was in a governance report that came out before the Core Services Committee report was delivered by our clerk. That was in the fall of 2016. And in that regard, I believe the discussion was about members of council on the committee participating in discussions, but members of council that were not on the committee, of course, can attend any committee meeting, but would refrain from participating in the discussions and, of course, voting. It was recommended that they not sit at the table, because if you sit at the table, then you're seen as being a council member at the table. But I don't believe there was any recommendation that would prohibit that. It was more of a discussion among council and staff about what might be the best protocol.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Excuse me. Any other questions on just the general? Excuse me. So, just in general, before we move on to the next correspondence section, This is not to do with the motion, we've already passed it, but for Councillor Backer, Councillor Kett, there, in the minutes was no SOP, special occasion permit. Said the chair advised Waterloo will not be applying for the special occasion permit, and over was asked. I just wanted to know, make sure that this is identified as a you know, important item, that I wanted to see if there's any feedback, if that's been being dealt with in an expedited manner.
Yes, last Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay, that's all I wanted to know, because I would...
Yes, it is.
Yeah, good, thank you.
We don't want to put your name on the report without you knowing. We're on that.
Well, next item. Councillor Somerville pulled the banning balloons correspondence. Councillor Somerville and then Councillor Drew wanted to also speak to it, I believe.
Who, yes.
Councillor Somerville?
Thank you. Yes, my question in that regard was, I've had a couple of my residents who have come to me about this, because balloons are floating over and balloons are getting caught in trees and everything else. Do we have a bylaw with regards to balloon releases in our township?
I've never seen one, but I'll ask the clerk if he's ever seen one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not to my knowledge, no.
I think maybe, can I make a recommendation, or can I make a motion that we get a bylaw? This is a really significant bylaw, a real significant problem in our area, because birds and animals are getting into these beautiful things, because they attract birds, and birds will get them into their beaks and get them tangled up, especially ducks and geese. And I'd just like to see a bylaw come through with respect to that.
So would you like staff to look into that?
I would like
To see if
that.
there's one there? I don't know if council would be ready to direct them to do a bylaw without first seeing if there is one and maybe having some comments on it. I don't know, I would probably look to Mr. Allura on thoughts, and not minimalizing the threat, but just that nobody's looked at that. Could also be a SEAC committee initiative too.
I actually think I asked a while ago if there was a bylaw, and I think there is one somewhere that says something about a release of balloons. So could you look into that, senior staff, and I'll refer it on to staff.
So, you okay without a motion, just a direction to look into it, or?
Mr. Mayor, we'll take that direction and have the clerk look to see if there's anything existing bylaw or provision in place. Would that be what you're looking for?
That would be perfect, thank you.
Good, thanks. Councillor Drew, did you have something?
Just exactly the same issue. It's not only litter in our countryside, it's also potentially deadly to our fish, our birds, and other wildlife. So, yeah, I would support looking into this.
Okay, any other questions? Moved by Councillor Somerville. All those in favor? Carried. Next item was Heritage Tree Program 10.4.5, pulled by myself, just to ask if this correspondence, which talks about a program for tree planting, it was in last week's paper, I believe, with the Vimy Ridge oak tree planting that Uxbridge is doing, with Dave Robinson's support, and I was just curious if this is an opportunity with the heritage part of it, of looking at that with the tree planting, as well as maybe forwarding this correspondence to Squealog Environmental Advisory Committee and KRCA to come up with a plan to participate. And it doesn't have to be just the Vimy Ridge, but to take the Vimy Ridge Uxbridge initiative into consideration. There's a whole website on it, planting saplings from there that would certainly be paying tribute to our 100th anniversary for Vimy Ridge, and also looking at other tree planting initiatives. I believe that that was part of the request, was for municipalities with their tree planting to be part of it, and residents to, I think it's voluntarily submit online the initiatives and partake in tree cover and additional tree cover. So, Councillor Back?
Thank you. Through the mayor, do we have enough time? When is the cutoff in order to go to committee and then bring it back to council and make a decision? Do we have enough time to do that, or should we make a decision sooner than later?
I don't know of dates now, or we could just leave it with staff to look into it to see about the compressed deadlines. I don't know if staff, because this was in correspondence, even had an opportunity to look and see what the program was about. But we can have staff look into it and maybe see if deadlines will be met and have some sort of just high-level response come back from council at the end of the month or something, just as a update or something with the dates. Councillor Drew?
I passed along this information to the Scouts because they're looking for projects to do, and one of them was tree planting. This would be an excellent program for us as well, because they come in and do the planting apparently, and that's why it didn't work out for the Scouts, because they wanted the Scouts or the Scout movement to do the planting. So, but I don't have any idea about deadlines or anything like that, and it doesn't say anything. But they do come in and do the planting, which is kind of nice, save our staff.
So, and like, the reason why I noted the Vimy Ridge in there is just because I know it was in the paper with Uxbridge passing a resolution to plant $250 a sapling. They were planting oak trees. Did I say something that, yeah, oak trees that came from the acorns of the oak nuts, and that or the saplings have been grown from there. So I know there's an initiative, there's a website for it, and I was just making a note on there, if we could fit a deadline, or I know there's an application process, or some you have to apply for it. If it's coming from a municipality, I read into it, it has extra weighting, so it would just be something that would be nice to be able to add to attribute to the 100th anniversary, because there will only be a finite amount of these saplings that'll be planted. So Mr. Allure, was there 10 point, yes, that one.
Mr. Mayor, when I read that correspondence, I think they're really looking for people to input into their website and provide information on initiatives that are happening with respect to this Heritage Tree program. We could make sure our, social media sites and websites promote this and provide those links as a way of perhaps addressing this.
No, that's good, and I think just the paragraph on there talks about the Heritage Tree program and referencing the two different Ontario Greenleaf Challenge as well as the Heritage Tree program. So I just didn't want to miss an opportunity to collaborate with the potentially two initiatives for the Vimy Ridge opportunity, if that's there. So that's really what I was looking for, if staff could just look into it and maybe come back with something if they find that there's a window of opportunity or a chance that we can allocate some small resources. I don't think it's that much that Uxbridge is putting towards it, but enough to be able to implement a similar type of recognition here. Okay, any other questions from Councillor Catt?
Should we have a presentation?
By Mr. Robinson?
No, I had a presentation about a month and a half ago I tried to bring forward regarding Forest Ontario and some of their projects.
Oh, okay, this is Forest Ontario. So, I was specifically talking about the Vimy Ridge one, so, but so, I wasn't looking for a presentation because I don't think we're going to have time to fit it into the window. This is a quick staff or turnaround. Questions from council? Councillor Somerville?
Perhaps senior management could get in touch with the Suzanne Perry for more information, and perhaps we can bring this back at council.
Suzanne Perry is for...
Well, in the third paragraph, it says, please contact Suzanne Perry Forestry Outreach Coordinator.
Right, well, I would just add that to the staff, which they would see in the contact there, but Dave Robinson is who is not on there with the Vimy Ridge connection, which we can just add to staff to reach it, pull them in together, because...
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions on that? I can't move the correspondence to be received. Moved by Councillor Drew. All those in favor? Carried. That's all the items I had pulled. Now we're moving to item 11.1, which is Healthy Lakes Steering Committee. Councillor Drew, you're doing the report, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, in the interest of time, I'm sure that everybody's read it, and I'd be willing to answer any questions.
Okay.
And I will, if nobody has moved it, I would...
Yep, so I was just going to say, Councillor Back, you're going to move the report, and that the Healthy Lakes Steering Committee 2017 Work Plan attached as attachment 1 of the report be endorsed. Questions from council? I wrote down Councillor Drew, and I said Councillor Back. I meant Councillor Drew moved it.
Thank you.
It's a 4-letter last name. Another 4-letter. It's been a long day.
It's been a lot of 4-letter
So all
words.
4-letter last name councillors are being mixed together, so, anyway, so Councillor Drew, it's there before us. Any questions from council? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Next item, I have a pecuniary interest, so I'm going to relieve my... Are you able to do this? Sure. You have a pecuniary interest.
Just a minute. You don't have to leave all that one.
Mr. Belfry, are you looking to present this report? Okay, so we have we'll move it first. Moved by Councillor Drew. All those in favor? Okay. Okay, Mr. Belfry?
Thank you. I'm bringing forward this report to just bring to light a study we want to do. The township has been in discussions with Stockworth Developments about the possibility of an indoor pool on the property there. Stockworth is looking to start their development this summer, and due to the time-sensitive nature of this, the first building they want to put in place is what is possibly the pool structure. Recently, we had awarded a contract to Sierra Planning for our Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan. We've entered into discussions with them to add this to the scope of work. It's a much more focused scope on specifically a pool. We'd be looking for them to do an assessment for the need for an indoor pool, determine the appropriate size or facility requirements for a community pool, comparative to any other facilities elsewhere, estimates of cost of the facility and different scenarios on operation, whether it's us operating it, an independent operating it, size of the pool. We're looking towards, for municipal standards, of a 25-meter pool, 6-lane pool as a base model. Going from there, looking at other developments for functions for seniors and youth, looking at what is required for the pool. We want to see if it can be a joint venture on construction, or looking at many different options. So this is a very focused towards a pool. We've heard that the ask to look at these kind of studies for pools and see if this is necessary, but moving forward, we're making a recommendation to contract Sierra to look at this study for us and bring this forward as quickly as possible and start the engagement process with stakeholders in the community and Stockworth. So, I'll take questions, anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Belfry. Any questions from council? Councillor Back?
Thank you, and actually, I think this question is for our CAO because our Director of Community Services is not here. Correct me if I'm wrong, has Stockworth received final approval from council?
Stockworth is in the process of site plan review. My understanding is that they've submitted their first submission and are working on their second.
And they don't have sewer allocation yet as of today by council as well, correct?
No, they don't. Under the policy, as council know, that sewer allocation would be given when the site plan came forward for approval.
Will this all occur in the next little while, like just because the statement that they plan on starting their development this summer and we only have till June and we're on recess and then we're into the fall is, I just hope that, obviously they would be aware of that, but I just want to chicken and the egg or horse before the cart, hope that building doesn't start before we actually give approval. Does that happen?
They won't be able to start until council does give approval. That site plan will come back forward through council for approval. At a planning and community affairs meeting. So it's most likely, I can tell you, it's very optimistic to think they'll be underway by the summer. I think it's more like a site plan approval in the mid to latter part of the fall, which would give time for this study to be completed and inform the process.
Councillor Back, any further questions? Any other questions from council? Councillor Watton?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Belfry. If this gets awarded, what is the timeline for a report? I'm scanning it, I'm not seeing it.
Through the Deputy Mayor to the Councillor, we would expect this process to take about 2 months.
So after summer?
After summer, they can move quicker. It depends. We have to get the award. The final award won't be until the next council meeting. So they said a month to 2 months to us, so they're going to push very quickly. We're just right in the process right now of setting our user meetings for the overall master plan, so there will be some piggybacking on that, and that's coming forward with our first public meetings in May on that, so.
Okay, as Councillor Back alluded to, it's like the chicken and the egg. So if for some reason the feasibility study came back with no pool, how would that affect Stockworth site plan?
Thank you to the chair. There are many things on the site plan that need to be furthered. The pool is one, but while the pool, the determination of the pool is being considered, the site plan can still move forward with the other matters that need to be resolved. And what's happening at this point is the site plan process is reserving a spot for the pool. And taking a typical pool size, similar to the pool that is in Uxbridge, and reserved a piece on the floor for that. If the pool did not proceed, that floor space would be changed, most likely, to condominium units or possibly commercial space.
Any further questions? Councillor Somerville?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Belfry, have you looked into what the upkeep of the pool is, especially with the Uxbridge pool, it being probably 35 years old? Have you spoken with them as to the upkeep and how much is this going to cost the taxpayers?
Through the Deputy Mayor, the Councillor, that will be part of this process. It will be vetted out, the cost of what a pool would be and what it will be on the tax base. We have an idea of what it is, but we want to go through the process and have that vetted out properly. There will be costs, but to give a dollar amount at this point is a bit premature. So through this process, Sierra will vet out, depending on what the partnership is, what the design of the pool is, and we'll get a better idea of any of the costing scenarios there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Belfry. I think that's all the questions from council. Thank you. Yeah, I did that in reverse order. Mr. Belfry, you're up still, I believe. So we have report comms 2017-29. I don't see a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Back. Mr. Belfry?
Thank you. This report I'm bringing forward is on the contracting out of the Scugog Recreation Center concession booth. This is a good news thing for us. During the process of when we were discussing all the different scenarios with the merger of the two hockey leagues and talking with staff over in Uxbridge, they had contacted us and asked if we were interested in contacting out our booth through their vendor. So, of course, we've looked at that over the years. Before my time, managers had looked at that. I've looked at it. We've tried RFPs with no success. We've offered it to community groups, see if they would want to run it, and we had no uptake on that. So we were really excited when we were approached by an experienced arena vendor who came to us and wanted to contract out the booth. Ms. Liu has provided us with a quote of $12,650 to operate the booth. That would be through the prime months of operation at a higher rate of $1,350 a month, and then through June, which is our low season right now, that may change depending on how things go, but right now, everything's based on these numbers, is $500, and then we're not open in July and August. They would probably reopen the end of August for the returns after we put the ice back in. Through looking at this process, it's a good time for us because our Coca-Cola contract is up now. We're moving in, we don't have a contract with our vendors. And we did, as council had asked, we were looking for efficiencies, and we looked at what our staff were doing and how much staffing time this was taking, aware that when we put in all the staffing hours that we have into the operations of the concession booth, it's not making money for us. It takes up to 20% of one staffing person's time. The operators were up to 5 hours a week, so when we equate all that to a dollar value, going against what we're doing, not including payroll staffing time and accounts payable staffing time when we send all the cash down, we thought this was a great way for us to continue to offer the service, but actually flip it for us and actually start to make money, and which goes to the facility, which then helps what I brought forward a couple weeks ago with our user rates and helps us look for alternative revenue sources. It also allows us, as we've moved to this new community services department, to still look for efficiencies where if we are freeing up that staffing time of the one or two people that are supervising that staffing time can go back to the department to look at ways, whether it's through booking, which are split across the department now, bring that back into one office, and using our staff time better moving forward. We're going to go through a lot of changes within our department in the next year with a few retirements, and we're looking at planning ahead to see how we can tackle that and move these things off and let the people that do concession management, which isn't us as professionals, we're recreation providers, that they will operate that and give us money to do that. We've talked to the managers in Uxbridge, and they're totally happy with Ms. Liu. Through the tryouts being in Uxbridge the last month and a bit, I've been over in Uxbridge and I've watched how she's interact with the customers, and I've seen how good she is at it, and I'm totally happy bringing this recommendation forward to move forward. She wants to get in there, become a country style licensed vendor. She'll negotiate with Pepsi and develop the contracts there, which pulls us out of all the vending, and we can move our resources to the building more, so.
Councilor Guido?
Thank you, and yes, I'll agree with you. Ms. Liu gave my son some encouraging words before his tryout, and it's definitely a well-run operation. A question, though, will Ms. Liu then be hiring the existing staff to work the booth, or will she be manning the booth or hiring that all on her own?
Through the mayor and the councilor, Ms. Liu does have at times staff in Uxbridge I've observed, so she has said she will hire a few of our staff. We are going to give recommendation to who she would want to hire. She does operate this too as with family members, so I think it'll be a combination of what she can do to manage both sites, so I think it's a new thing for her, but there will be a few of the kids left, but all of they will now work for her instead of us. And
okay, that was my next question, the existing staff that we had at our booth, those students, what would happen to them, but...
through the mayor and the council, a lot of those students already work in our rec programs too, so we're not going to lose the value of them. They'll move more into our rec hours. We're at a good time too for our staff, because we only have 3 returning, so we're at actually a really good time to flip this so we don't have as many commitments to staff, so we're hoping that she'll take those 3, and they also work within our rec program, so we should be able to help them out.
Perfect, thank you, and congratulations on the efficiency, that's great.
Thanks.
Councilor Batt?
Thank you, and yeah, this is, congratulations on this. I know years ago we looked at it, we just couldn't figure out the rent and sales and how to figure all that out, so I'm glad she's experienced in arenas and can figure out what her revenue could be predictably. Will she do leasehold improvements to make it look more like a country style?
Through the mayor and councilor, yes, we've already met with Country Style representatives. They've come in and looked at the booth and are looking to start renovating the booth. As soon as this is awarded, they want to get going in June to start dealing with countertops and those kind of things.
Right, and that would be Ms. Lou's leasehold improvements, her cost. I don't think with Pepsi, so we're not going to get any benefits of a contract with Pepsi, but neither would she. That would be a franchisor issue because it's a national. And I think that's it. That's great. It's a good, yeah, we've got all these good news stories, so we need to start rah-rah.
Any other questions from council? It's always good news around here. So, just a quick question on that. Is this, those months, I know we were talking about June, if this is a 5-year contract with renewable clauses, and June does become an extension of that one, is there going to be wording in the contract for that, or?
Yes, you Mayor, yep. Within the contract, there's vocabulary to talk about changes, any changes, we just have to give notice. believe it's 60 days. We have some developments which we're working on for next year that we're not going to talk about right now, but hopefully we'll be able to increase usage next year.
Okay, and then the other thing was, does Uxbridge sell alcohol?
Through the vendor, no, they don't sell alcohol through the vendor.
Through the vending machines?
Vending machines? I haven't looked, but I would doubt it.
Darn. So, but I was just asking, like, what happens if, say, there was that's not committing that there couldn't be, they were a sole provider of services of outside product, except for, I read from this one, they would be taking care of the vending machines too, if it's a Pepsi, Coke contract, or whatever the franchise he obtains, then they would be responsible for filling, but also the revenues and profits from that, and us going to exchange from a break-even point to a lease, which is going to be in black and white, what the net contributions will be towards the facility.
Yeah.
Or the operations.
Yeah, as soon as our co-contract's up, all the coolers, vending machines, all that will now, once we get rid of most of our product, we don't have a lot left, Coke will come in and take them away once she negotiates her new deal, and whoever she negotiates with Pepsi, then they'll supply all that back.
And I know it can't be compared apples to apples, but did you see if this is in line with what Uxbridge receives as a lease payment?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I have. I talked to the manager over there and looked at what they were getting, and it is in line with what they're getting. So.
All right, oh, good. I'm happy to see, like all the other councilors have mentioned it too, so good job, thank you. Councilor Kett, just wanting to vote. All right, moved by Councilor Back already. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next item is, the pecuniary interest was declared for, we're on 11.4. And this is just, don't know if there's going to be any comments for this one. We need a mover for the report to be received. Moved by Councilor Drew. Again, I would just advise that we'll be careful with any comment or question on this because we were dealing with this matter on May 29th. If there's any questions on procedure or anything for those who have not declared pecuniary interest, seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next item, notice of motion. We have Councilor Drew has moved the notice of motion that's before you. Section 3 of the Health of Lake Squag Steering Committee terms of reference be amended to include 2 Township of Squag staff members as voting members on the committee. Section 9 be updated to reflect this change, and the quorum in Section 4 be changed to 9 members. Councilor Drew, did you need to address? I think it's self-explanatory, and it sounds like the support.
Yeah, I'll just give a couple of brief remarks, if I might, Mr. Mayor, and I'll of course, I've moved the motion. At our last meeting, it wasn't too clear. We were very close to a quorum, and there was, concern about did we have a quorum or didn't we have a quorum. So that resulted in my looking at the terms of reference very closely and contacting staff, and we determined that yes, everybody that is listed as a member is a voting member, which then led to the fact that there are voting members from Kawartha Conservation, who are our major partners, and the Lake Stewards, who are major partners in the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project. The only people that didn't have a vote were our staff, and we are, of course, the major partner in this project. Talking to staff, we determined that it would probably be a good idea, and we talked to the staff involved, and they thought that, yes, they should weigh in on the decision-making for this project and within this committee. It is a steering committee, it's not an advisory committee, so the rules of a steering committee are just a little different, or can be, apart from our advisory committee. So that's why this is coming forward as we embark on this major lake enhancement project.
Fully understood. Questions from council on that? Councilor Somerville?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to Councilor Drew. Who are the voting members? Can you just name them off?
There are the terms of reference, but they're, the voting members include, thank you, sorry. The voting members include Trans-Severn Waterway, Parks Canada, Kawartha Conservation, the Lake Stewards, the MPP's office has a vote, the MP's office has a vote. There's some of the ministries have a member on the board, or on the steering committee.
Okay. And who else in council? Is there anyone else in council that's on it?
Myself and Councillor Kett.
Okay, and who would you like to have as in these staff members?
There are 3 staff members currently going. We are going to have 2 as voting, and the third as an alternate. The 2 matches up with the Lake Stewards and the Kawartha Conservation. They each have 2. Okay. Actually, our fundraising committee chair for this project also has a vote, so.
Perfect. Just the staff members, the 3 staff members, or?
The 3 staff members are Director Coleman, Kevin,
Heritage?
Arsenal, Kevin Arsenal, and Mike Donnelly.
Okay. Thank you. Right. That's what I wanted. Thank you.
Councillor Kett?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that there are actually some people from the community as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item, proclamations from the mayor's office, that the proclamations issued by the mayor's office for May and June 2017 be endorsed, moved by Councillor Somerville. All those in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn, I need a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Somerville. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much for this long day.